Myths of the Sea. When I was a young girl, I went sailing with my close friend Sandy. As we carefully rowed our small boat out onto the choppy waters, she began to reminisce. My mother, she told me, gave me 2 pieces of advice. Sandy gazed quizzically out onto the horizon as she spoke. Sandy, my mum would say, always remember 2 things. These things are very important and you must never forget them. Men are like dogs, and the sea is like an open hand. There are many myths surrounding the sea. It's the only part of our beautiful planet that has not yet been fully charted. Many new species that lurk in its murky depths are being discovered every day. The sea is a mystery, mesmerizing, menacing, and vast. It can be both tranquil and life-affirming, yet also monstrous, wild, unpredictable, and very, very dangerous. The oceans of the world connect us all, and their rich, expansive swathes, teeming with vibrant life, cover the largest areas of planet Earth. One of my favourite books is Topsell and Gesner's Curious World of Fanciful and Real Beasts. A selection of woodcuts form the collection of 16th century naturalists Conrad Gesner and Edward Topsell. The book is a fascinating exploration of the wonders of nature. Imagine what it must have been like, exploring the huge expanses of uncharted territory on land and sea, discovering new landscapes, populations, and creatures. Being amongst the first people to document hitherto unknown beings. Almost like space exploration today. What a privilege to be a part of the lucky few unravelling the mysteries of life on Earth. Yet, some mysteries remain unsolved. And in this video, we will explore the fishy facts surrounding one of those mysteries of the sea. Mermaids. In Oldie English, the word mer means sea and maid means woman. So a mermaid is literally a woman of the sea. Mermaids and mermen are creatures whose head and torso are human, but who have the tail of a fish from the hips down. The phenomenon of mer creatures have been wondered about, written about, drawn and painted and sculpted about from ancient times right up until the present day. Mermaids are famed for their beautiful long hair and are often depicted sitting on a rock along the seashore with a comb and a mirror, carefully brushing their luscious locks and singing. The mermaid's mirror is thought to represent the moon, which controls the tides, and her comb is believed to have the power to control the waves. It is said that mermaids can sometimes transform into full human form, but that if a mermaid becomes separated from her comb, she will be unable to turn back into her aquatic form and will become stuck with legs, imprisoned on land. Stories abound of men who have deliberately hidden or stolen the mermaid's comb in order to entrap them. In one such tale, related by storyteller Giles Abbott, the mermaid gets her revenge. After being kidnapped in this way and forced to marry, the mermaid gives birth to a son, to her kidnapper's delight. When her young son finds the comb that was hidden by his father and returns it to his mother, she regains her mermaid power and swims back out to sea, taking the child with her. Mermaids are linked to the myths of the siren, and some people think that sirens and mermaids are the same thing. However, the sirens were thought to be half human, half bird, with the torso of a woman and the legs and wings of a bird. In the lyrics of the 1990s indie pop hit, Song to the Siren, by This Mortal Coil, a lost and lonely sailor who has been lured to his rocky, shipwrecked doom by a siren, laments, "Now my foolish boat is leaking, broken, lovelorn on your rocks." The song is a metaphor for abandonment and heartbreak, and is based on the stories of the Sirens, who would lure sailors to crash their boats on the rocks of their island, Sirenum Scopuli, off the coast of southern Italy. Famed for their incredibly beautiful singing, the Sirens are thought to be daughters of the Greek god Phorcys, a fish-tailed, crab-clawed, red-scaled primordial sea god who lurks in the depths of the deep. Sailors who hear the Siren's song become entranced, allured to a rocky island where they are shipwrecked, and either die from drowning or starvation, while they obsess over the haunting song, unable to free themselves from their entrancement. Another metaphor for the all-consuming nature of obsessive romantic love. In Homer's epic literary work, The Odyssey, the seafaring men who passed near to the Sirenum Scopuli island saved themselves by plugging their ears with wax to block out the Sirens' singing sound. Phorcys is also said to have fathered the Gorgons with the goddess Echidna, who had the lovely face of a fair maiden and the body of a monstrous snake. The Gorgons were 3 sisters with snakes for hair, and wings, claws, tusks, and scales. Medusa is the most famous Gorgon. They could kill men just by looking at them. If you look into the eyes of a Gorgon, you will be turned to stone. Perhaps the myth of the mermaid originated in Syria, with the ancient goddess Atargatis, who is linked to Venus. Atargatis was associated with fish and fertility. It is said that she forbade the consumption of fish for food. Her story of transformation originates at the point where she found herself pregnant out of wedlock. Feeling ashamed, hopeless, and in despair, she threw herself into a lake. In an instant, her lower half was turned into a fish's tail, and her life was saved. She did not drown. At the same moment, the constellation of Pisces appeared in the sky. The child she later bore became the Syrian queen Semiramis, and before Atargatis, there was Oannes. The story of Oannes can be found in Mesopotamian mythology. He is said to be an amphibious man who inhabited the body of a fish and could transform at will. Moving between living in the ocean and on land, he was a regular visitor to the Gulf Coast, where he preached to humanity about the wonders of literature, art, and science. There are hundreds of interesting myths and stories surrounding mermaids. They have been celebrated in popular culture, songs, and film, and are also found in ancient history and traditional storytelling. They appear in tales from a myriad of cultures. But what is the real story? Were mermaids conjured up by the hallucinations of lonely, careworn and overworked sailors, possibly on the brink of starvation and dehydration, who mistook the frolicking seals far out at sea for voluptuous, ethereal mermaids? Were they an ancient species that has now become extinct? Perhaps they once inhabited the wondrous and mythical lost city of Atlantis, circling and dancing through its alleyways and streets. The question is, do mermaids exist? Did they ever? The case of the Fiji Mermaid puzzled scientists and members of the public alike for many years. Exhibited globally throughout the 19th century, this taxidermied treasure was heralded as proof that mermaids do exist. The creature was quite discoloured, shriveled and small, but it did indeed appear to be a genuine mermaid, with the torso of a human and the tail of a fish. There was a lot of speculation and controversy surrounding the Fiji Mermaid's legitimacy. The prominent naturalist, Sir Everard Home, was recorded as declaring that it was real, while others were convinced it was a fake. Exhibitions in New York that included the mermaid were flooded with crowds and accompanied by sellout lectures made by fake naturalists who espoused the existence of a myriad of aquatic animals that roamed the depths of the sea, half animal, half fish, including birds, horses, and even lions. After exhaustive tours of the United Kingdom and America, it was finally established that the Fiji Mermaid was indeed a fake. It was the combination of a monkey's torso and a fish's tail that had been skillfully stitched together by a Japanese fisherman in the 1800s. However, it is possible to see real-life mermaids swimming and playing in their natural habitat. Yes, they do exist. Weeki Wachee Springs State Park in Florida, USA, has hosted a mermaid show that has been attracting fascinated visitors since the 1940s. Conceived and built by professional diver Newt Perry, this fascinating visitor attraction only had 40 seats at first, but by the 1960s it had been bought by the ABC Film Network and had room for 400 audience members. They gasp in amazement as mermaids swim through the mesmerising bubbles of natural gas that rise up, bubbling from the rocks beneath. These beautiful mermaids swim, dance and cavort among the natural wildlife of fish, turtles and sometimes alligators. And in Porthcawl, Wales, UK, Faith Jones created her very own mermaid, Alice. If you book through her business Fantastic Moments, you can arrange a meet and greet on the beach or a children's pool party with Alice. Alice's dragon skin silicone tail came all the way from Florida and is worth £2,000. Through her work with Alice, Faith hopes to raise awareness of climate change and the devastating impact it and plastic pollution are having on our delicate ocean life and ecosystem. Another mermaid mystery from the UK surrounds the Mermaid's Chair. Nestling in an ancient church on the hillside at Zennor in North Cornwall, not too far from St Ives, is a very beautiful and mysterious sculpture. It is carved into one end of the pews and depicts a mermaid with fabulous tresses, a mirror and a comb. It is said that the woman who used to occupy that pew over 600 years ago was a real-life mermaid. No coincidence, perhaps, that the church is dedicated to Saint Senara, patron saint of California, whose climate is very similar to Florida, the home of Weeki Wachee Springs. No coincidence, perhaps, also that Saint Senara died from tuberculosis, a disease of the lungs, death from which is thought to be very similar to drowning. As Captain Murdoch put it in Curtis Harrington's cult classic 1961 film The Night Tide, starring Dennis Hopper, myths spring from truth. And as the film's lead character Maura said, I feel the sea water in my veins. I listen to the sea's roar and it speaks to me like a mother's voice. The tide pulls at my heart and the face of the moon fills my soul with a strange longing. Maybe the myth of the mer creatures are metaphors for love, the wonder of giving oneself up to the vast expanse of love and becoming lost and trapped in its waves. Or perhaps we are in fact descended not from apes, but mermaids, the evidence for which lies buried, inaccessible, at the bottom of the deepest ocean.